They were buffering. All right, everybody, we are live. This is Dr. Michael K from the Center for Functional Health, and today I have the honor of being with Brian Pedersen. He is a personal fitness coach and he is a nutrition coach. Welcome to the show. We had a chance to speak before. It's so great that you're able to make some time to come on today.
Thanks again, Dr. K. I appreciate you having me on the show. Definitely thank you for the opportunity.
It was kind of cool. You had reached out to me. We started talking back and forth. We have a lot of things in common, especially when it comes to how do we get people better? How do we get them healthier? How do we get them off the sofa, off the chair, and into movement? So movement, both in your world and my world, is extremely important. So let's start from the beginning. So you didn't wake up one day and say, hey, I want to be a personal trainer and fitness coach, right? So how did all this begin?
It started, I would say, I was about 24, I want to say, and I just started getting into working out then. And so this was like the late 90s. And I had a physical job at the time doing retail, moving lots of things around. So I really liked that idea of feeling strong and moving things around and being active. And when I started working out, I noticed changes, not just physically, but also mentally. I just started feeling really good. I was a heavy smoker for about 10 years and I quit when I was 25. So about a year after I was working out, I realized it's, not sustainable to keep smoking, even though it was a really, long time to be doing it. It's a very powerful addiction. I know it's hard for lots of people to stop. It's hard to break that habit. And I thought to myself, I can't really keep doing this, on this path towards fitness that I like and enjoy and keep this up. So I kind of gradually lost my interest in that and decided to eventually kick the habit. And then years and years went by, and about 2014 it was when I decided I wanted to just get the certification and study for it and become a personal trainer, because it was something that I stuck with throughout the years. So I was always doing strength training. I got into running and just felt really good and wanted to share that with people. I noticed when I would be at the gym, people would ask me questions like, how do you do this? What's a good exercise for that? And I really liked helping them. So that was kind of where that came from.
Gotcha. So quitting smoking is really, really, really hard. So how did you quit smoking?
Well, I would cut down. I would tell people I'm going to quit. And it took a little while, but I got to the point where I just didn't really want it anymore. And that was something that really was the instigating factor, I think, when I got to that point. And I just didn't want it anymore. But I also, telling people kind of held me a little bit accountable, but it wasn't a foolproof method. And I tried a couple of times and went back to it. But I would say probably that last year when I started working out, that was kind of a big factor in wanting me in helping me decide to stop, because I realized I just didn't like it anymore. And now I can't stand the smell of it at all. So
my mom was a 2-packer a day. And growing up with that, I didn't know that the house smelled like smoke until I moved away and came back home.
Yeah.
Right? And then you can really smell it. You don't realize that it just insinuates itself everywhere, into your clothes, into your hair and all that. So, kudos to you for, quitting smoking, all that. It's great. And, the exact opposite, your bell curve swung into the other side where you're like, not only did I quit smoking, now I'm, a personal trainer and stuff like that. So in your personal training classes and stuff like that, is that where they also added nutrition, or you did nutrition above that?
I did nutrition separately. People would ask me some questions about nutrition, but I was really not able to help them out that much because I didn't have any kind of certification in that. So I decided in 2024 to get a level 1 coaching certificate through Precision Nutrition. So it helps me. I'm not a dietitian or anything like that, or even a nutritionist, but I'm a nutrition coach. So what that means is I help people with their nutrition needs, and I kind of can explain the science behind it and how it applies to their own life. So it's a way to help them eat better and live better.
Gotcha. So before we get deep into like personal training, nutrition, and stuff like that, we have so many great advances today that we see on the internet and AI, artificial intelligence, and I even see these AI personal training programs, right? So, I mean, not to be crass, but like, why do I need a personal trainer? I can go to AI. AI will give me everything. It'll make my content for me. It'll give me menus. It'll tell me what to eat. Why I need somebody watching me?
I hear that sometimes. And I would have to say, Well, there's a couple of things. Like an AI isn't going to give you empathy, so they're not going to really listen to what your needs are or why you're doing what you're doing or what you really need help with. And it's not a human, so it doesn't have that human touch. So also, it's not going to teach you proper form. You're not going to be able to, be in front of an AI and it's going to tell you you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing or how it's supposed to be done. So you can get a general idea as a client, I think, but you're not going to get that direct service that a human can provide. And that's just something I've always prided myself on, just really paying attention to the client, what their individual needs are, meeting them where they're at, and really focusing on what it is that they actually want, and then going deeper and asking the why, because that's how you really get some good insights in how to help them. So I don't think that AI can really do that. And especially with in-person training, it's just not the same. Definitely not.
Yeah, I definitely, one of the things that we talked about back pain, obviously with the type of work that what I do with both the functional medicine and the musculoskeletal dysfunction stuff, AI can be helpful to say, hey, go do this, quadruped exercise, go do this extension exercise, go do this plank, but it's not going to be able to say, well, you're doing a plank and you're dipping your hips way down too much, creating an arc. It's not going to say, you know what, your shoulder's killing you when you're doing a plank, so you're going to have to, do a different position. So I think that's where, definitely that one-on-one comes into. So in your personal training, you work with a lot of people with back pain and poor mobility, correct?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, yeah. That's a big thing that I come across a lot. A lot of people have back pain, whether it's low back pain or just general back pain. And I think a lot of it comes from too much sitting, which I know a lot of people already know that. But in general, people sit a lot during the day, especially busy executives. I work with a lot of busy executives and basically help them perform better, and excel in and out of the boardroom. So I do that by providing those high quality workouts for them. So with back pain, yeah, it's a lot of back pain that I see overall. It's a very common complaint that people have. And in fact, I came across a stat that was pretty interesting. Like the average person spends about $2,000 to $3,000 annually on temporary back pain solutions, like medications, massages, things like that, ergonomic equipment. So it's not really addressing the root cause. So exercise and movement is something that can help with that, definitely.
I can tell you from our end of things, medication, I'm pro medicine, obviously, but it's chemistry, right? For every action, there's a reaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've had cases where, too much of the Advil and the Motrin or taken incorrectly, causing, ulcerative colitis and causing some gut issues. If they take too much Aleve, naproxen sodium, it's really can affect your kidneys. And it's not like if one is good, three is better. And that's where a lot of people have the issues where they mix it, and they're just doing, and I respect because they're doing anything they can to get out of pain, just they're not getting the right direction, right? So, I think it's great that, we talk about finding out that root cause of that discomfort and how we plan to change it. So I think that's really important. So, when people start a program, again, they're like, I'm going to go on the internet, I'm going to grab something, right? And that's the thing. And like, I think sometimes, especially in men more than women, our 40-year-old men or 50-year-old men are sometime when they get back into working out, they want to apply the same routine that when they were 20. But that's not the joint of a 20-year-old man, right?
It's not going to work.
See that a lot. It's like, they'll come in like, I'm like, hey, what happened? Like, it's bench pressing. I'm like, all right, when was the last time you bench pressed? Oh, that's college. All right, then why'd you start out with 135, right? So, obviously a huge mistake because our boy brain still stayed there. We're 9th, 10th grade, and but we're not. So, what have you seen in your experience where like the common mistakes that people make when they're trying to start a strength routine, and how can you avoid it other than like not going on the internet, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of times too, we think we know what we're doing, but a lot of times we don't.
Right.
So that's why I think a trainer is really handy in that respect. So a lot of what I see is people trying to start and go too heavy. You'll see that sometimes. People trying to lift too much of a heavy weight, especially if they haven't even strength trained much in the past, or they're just getting back to it after a long absence. So they're starting too heavy. They're going too hard. They're maybe working out too fast or too hard for their body to be able to handle it. They need time to work up to that level of intensity, whether that's power or strength that they're going for. But I also see sometimes people starting too light and keeping that for a while. So they're kind of just starting out and they're doing a little bit, but it's not really that effective because they're not really challenging themselves. But that's more so when they're advancing a little bit into their program. But for the most part, I would have to say I see people trying to go too heavy. People, even on machines, you'll see improper form because they're not seated properly, so they can get injured that way. Like if the chest press machine where you're sitting up and you're pressing out, if it's back too far, that can really, do some damage to the rotator cuff back there if you're reaching back too far to press. There's other things too. If you're not seated properly, you're not at the right angle, you could tweak something. So I do see that as well. So even with machines, you need to know proper technique and form, and that's where the trainer comes in handy.
I'm a big proponent of strength training, and aside from getting strong, there's other benefits to it from, ligament strength and tendon strength and joint stability and mobility. What have you seen with some of your clients when they started doing strength training where they thought, I'm getting in shape, I'm going to lose some weight, I want to look different, but they got these other benefits? What have you seen with your clients?
Yeah, well, I always come back to how they feel, and I have them tell me how they feel. That's, to me, is the most important thing. How you look is really secondary to me. So I want to know, how do you feel when you do this at movement, when you're done with your workout? How do you feel generally during the day? How do you feel? And usually they report having more energy. They feel like they're more energetic. They're a little more lively. If they get into a routine and they're enjoying it, they skip a workout, they want to get back into it. So they really find that stress relief as well. I hear that sometimes too, like they have a stressful day at work. They go work out, they feel a lot better. A lot of times too, people will start and they're kind of tentative and unsure what to do. And once they work with me, they get into a routine, they understand how to do certain things, they gain more confidence too. So they have more confidence in themselves, and that translates into other areas of their life. So at work, at home, at school, whatever they're doing in their social life as well. So there's a ton of benefits that I've been, hearing from people that I work with. Even just clothes fitting looser, even if they don't do it that frequently, just a little bit of working out can actually do a great deal of benefits for them.
Yeah, I think there's that whole longevity aspect of it as well, right? So
definitely,
yeah, we find that we work with our patients. There's always that initial setting where they come in, they feel horrible all over, and we want to talk about stuff like working out and longevity and getting healthy. We first have to get that initial complaint kind of under control for them to even have the room to okay, now we're going to talk about inviting like longevity and these different things that we need to do, because it's hard to pull every single lever when you're not feeling well. Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, they may come to us with a gut issue and a back issue and a skin issue, and they've been on the internet, they know that they got to wake up early, they got to take a cold plunge, they got to do a steam bath, they got to take all these supplements, like all these things they need to do, they got to eat right, but it's so hard to do all of that when you have this tremendous amount of pain and discomfort.
Exactly, yeah, and they have to get that under control first.
Yeah, you got to get it. So when you see your client that comes to you with back pain, and it's so overwhelming, where do you begin?
Well, first I make sure they've been cleared by a doctor and they're allowed to exercise, and I always encourage them, get x-rays, get an MRI, figure out what the actual issue is before you start trying to strength train and work out, to make sure that you're allowed and able to do it. And then otherwise I work around their injuries and work around their limitations. So we'll skip certain movements that are going to aggravate their back or possibly make it worse, but we'll do other activities that will make it feel better. So we kind of work around it. But again, when people have especially lower back pain, it can be pretty painful, and it kind of takes over your whole life because it's all you can think about. You can't really focus on anything else. So we try to make sure that they're cleared for exercise first, of course, and then definitely make sure that we can work around their limitations and still get them some exercises that they could do, and just work around whatever disabilities or pain that they have.
And how much do you think the brain plays into? Because we have some patients who are like, oh, I can't lift that. That's bad. And they've already have it in their head. oh, if I bend at the waist, if I hinge at the waist, I'm going to hurt.
Yeah,
So
that's
for
true.
us in our world, we almost have to like make their brain think differently. And,
Hmm.
because they're so scared to do something, but in that setting of being scared, it also prevents them from moving forward.
Yeah.
So talk me through when you're dealing with a client who's like, oh, deadlifts are bad. They're really, squats will ruin your knees because the orthopedic doctor told me that. And we're like, oh my God, the squat's like the best thing we can do. Right. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that?
Well, definitely, I have them try certain exercises first. I kind of intuitively know what they need, and I kind of ask them how they're feeling, of course, and how did that feel. We'll start with body weight a lot of times, or we'll do like suspension strap movements where they have some support, things like that. Not real heavy weights at times like that. Again, depends on what their abilities are and what their needs are. But I definitely coach them, talk them through, but I encourage them to get some kind of movement going and to stay as active as they can. And again, goes back to working around their injuries. So you can still get a workout in and do certain exercises, even if you do have some back pain. And some movements are going to make you feel better, actually. So, and again, it all depends on what their actual injury is and what the cause is and what's causing the pain. So that's something that has to be identified first. Definitely through like a medical exam, I would suggest, and then get cleared for that, and then we take it from there.
And when you see them initially, is there an assessment that you perform? Do you do like a functional training assessment? For us in our clinic, we always look at like, the squat, the
Yeah,
lunge, the hinge, the push up, a plank. These are things that we look at from that functional perspective, especially like rotation, right? Nobody really trains in rotation, but yet you'll bend over and you'll pick up a 5 degrees for reflection of water bottles out of the trunk of your car, rotate, and that's what, oop, back just
yeah,
went, right? So,
that's true.
what do you do with your assessments?
Very similar. We do like I do like a split squat where they drop the back knee down and come down and almost to the floor and back up again. Push ups, squats, bird dogs, things like that. Reach. They're called floor touches, where you extend a back leg out and then you reach towards the floor, trying to stay as upright as you can. And there's modifications you can do if they can't touch the floor. They can touch a chair or something like that. A lot of older clients, I have them sit to stand, so they sit in a chair and get back up again without holding on to anything. Do that a number of times, and so there's different things like that. There's also a movement where I can have somebody stand against the wall. They have their like hands up like this, and then arms as close to the wall as they can. Go all the way up, see what their
Yeah.
shoulder mobility is like. So different things like that.
How do you feel about the Turkish get up? It's probably one of my favorite exercises. Hard to do,
Oh yeah, it
but
is
you get
hard to
so
do.
much out of it.
I do like that. I haven't actually done that in a while, but I do like that one definitely. It's definitely great for the core and
Uh,
pretty much an overall body exercise.
so what do you do with the client that comes in and says to you, I don't want to come back. I'm so sore, right? This
Mhm.
isn't working. And they're not dealing well with pain, and he can't seem to separate this is post-exercise soreness, which is
Yeah.
good. We want that, as opposed to it's just some pain. What do you do to help them with their mindset? How do you help them split the like, oh my God, this is bad, to okay, it's just pain?
Yeah, I encourage them to recognize the difference between pain and soreness. So we talk about that when I'm meeting with them. I encourage them to take rest days. I encourage them to drink lots of water. That's all going to help with the soreness. So it's really, and I just explained, it comes with the territory, especially if you're just starting out and you're new to fitness or you're new to working out, you haven't worked out in a while, you're going to get sore, and it's going to happen. And there are certain movements that'll make you more sore than others. Depends also the level and the intensity that you're working out, how much weight you're using, things like that. So really, I just coach them through that process and tell them it's just part of the territory. It's going to get better in most cases. I mean, you're still going to have days where you're sore. I was working out legs on Monday, and I finally am not sore today. And I've done that. Like I've been working out for decades, and it still happens to me from time to time. So, but it gets easier with time, and it's just it's part of the process. It's part of muscle building. It's part of exercise, really.
Gotcha. And what do you do with your client that they brand spanking new? They're just starting out. I mean, for years we told, 3 sets 10, 4 sets 12, all that same stuff. How do you start them out? Like, what are you looking for them to do, and what kind of, are you looking for an outcome?
Well, it's always what their goals are. So we always talk about what are their goals. We find out what they are, ask them why, kind of dig a little bit deeper. Why is it important? Why now? All those questions are really important when I initially meet with them to do that assessment. Figure out what their ability level is, what their movement is like. And I just basically focus on what their goals and needs are. So especially with a new client, usually we start off with lighter weights or even body weight movements, then move to machines, free weights. But again, it depends on how advanced they are. Sometimes people are more advanced than others, but you basically meet them where they're at and then take it from there. So, but it always comes back to what do they want? What are their preferences? I also ask them, is there something any kind of exercises you want to learn? Is there any kind of equipment you want to use? Is there something you don't know how to do and you want to learn? So it's all about what they want and why. To me, that's what I focus on.
And do you ever incorporate like resistance band work as well?
Oh yeah, all the time. And I think that's key too, to keep it varied. You want lots of different equipment. So medicine balls, resistance bands. I have a partiality to free weights. I really like that a lot. So dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, things like that. But machines have their place as well. Suspension straps, and of course body weight movements are really good too. So there's lots of different methods of helping them gain strength and lose fat or whatever their goal is.
Yeah, I mean, I love machines. I mean, I grew up with Nautilus machines, right? So it was great. But to be honest with you, when I started working out, because I did 3 years of competitive bodybuilding and a year of powerlifting. So I think it's like I start with Nautilus equipment first because it's brand spanking new. It was cool. It was chic. This is in the late 70s, I think, early 80s, late 70s, I think. Yeah. So, it was cool, but at the same time, it didn't give the basics of the bench, the dead, the power clean, all that kind of stuff, the clean and press, a snatch. So, and I think after doing Nautilus, it was great. It was nice for like contouring muscles, but the real strength is when I went back to those movements.
Yeah,
the major movements. And nowadays I don't need to lift heavy weights, but I still work on those movements, right? So there are still things that I think we need to do as we get older. We may not be as big in the weight, like before, but we still got to get those joints moving. So in your program, when you're talking about weightlifting, what role does, hey, we're going to spend time on joint mobility today, and today's going to be a cardio day. So let's talk about those two things.
Yeah, it's definitely, I have a focus on more functional movements, things that they would do in their daily life. So picking things up off the floor, carrying things a certain distance, of course, pressing and rowing and pulling, things like that. So really, again, I concentrate on free weights mainly. And again, but it's also what does the client prefer? What do they want? What are they looking for? But I designed the program based around that, what I think is going to help them the most and get them the most effective workout. Cardio, I kind of have them do, I guess it's better to say conditioning, but I have them do that either within the workout as like a circuit type, format, something like that, where they have shorter rest. Again, depending on their ability level, shorter rests, different time periods where it's like a certain amount of seconds to complete a movement, things like that. Or I have them do that on their own time, like separately, like after the workout. Again, depends on what their goals and needs are.
And how do you feel about the client that says, listen, I'm going to do a treadmill, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it on an incline, and it's because I breathe heavier. Where my brain is like, all right, that's okay. You kind of almost move into an anaerobic state. So, why can't we just like have it, flatter, you're not pounding the joint that much, and we can go faster over a shorter period of time. Where are you with like what you talk about when you talk about treadmill? And to be honest with you, treadmill is not my favorite exercise for cardio.
Yeah, I prefer. I'm a runner too, so I like running outside. I really don't like the treadmill at all, but some clients do like it, and that's what they prefer. So I always stress to them, if you're walking, and again, it depends on their abilities. You want to be walking nice and tall. You don't want to be holding on. You don't really need to hold on, to the treadmill unless you feel safer that way. But You want to be walking at a brisker pace. You want to be looking straight ahead. You want to be standing tall, walking like you normally would be walking outside. You want to do that. And again, in terms of incline, I like having them vary it a little bit so that, again, they're not doing the same thing for day after day after day. Vary the speeds a little bit, vary the amount of time that they're on it. They have to change it up after a certain amount of time because they're just going to hit a plateau. And that's the same with any kind of workout program. You're going to be, if you do the same exercises probably for more than a month in the same order, same amount of reps, same weight, all that, it's going to just get static after a while. You're not going to see any improvements and you're not going to be really challenging yourself. So I do encourage my clients to remember that and to challenge themselves, but of course make it something that they can actually do. So there's that learning aspect and coaching aspect that comes into play there. So,
which is great. And do you use? I'm a big fan of the jump rope. Do you ever bring in the jump rope?
Well, yeah, all the time. I usually use that as part of a warm up, and sometimes in different classes or activities, I have them do that too. Yeah, and again, it just depends on their ability level. Some clients I know have joint issues; they can't do a lot of jumping motions, but some can. And so it's definitely beneficial, especially for a warm up. I think it's really great to incorporate that.
One of the things they've added, which I think is great, I don't know if you've seen it, is the ropeless jump rope. Have you seen that?
I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of that. I guess you're just like jumping in place and it's kind of like a jump rope, but
yeah, so it's got two handles. It's got like a little weighted ball at the end of a rope, and you're still swinging, but nothing's coming overhead.
Oh yeah,
so,
okay.
It's so for those who like I'm not coordinated enough to jump rope, they can still swing, and they can march in place, they can run in place, they can jump in place, and don't have to worry about the rope. And especially if like in an apartment, you got a small ceiling, you can't get around. It's just a wonderful way of getting them to move without doing the jump rope. Because you tell some people jump rope, like, I can't jump rope,
Yeah.
But great for the brain if you get it down too, right? So it's really a wonderful activity. But so is the small rebounders, right? Remember the rebounders that are out? I mean, those are still pretty good.
What were they? I forget that.
You ever seen that?
What was the rebounder? No.
Yeah, it's like a small trampoline.
Oh, okay, yeah. I have seen that in some places.
Yeah, those are really great, especially when you're warming up for person can't pound the joints kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good. With your clientele, do you have a demographic that you normally see like between this age and this age?
I would say, it's pretty wide, like 30s and up right now. Like right now, I'd say my youngest client is in their 30s. My oldest is in his 80s. So it's a big range.
Gotcha.
But yeah, it's pretty much a wide range. And over the years, I've had clients as young as 17, 18, and then in that same age up to 80. So it's kind of like that range. But my niche that I'm focusing on is that those busy professionals that feel like they don't have a lot of time to work out. But again, they may be experiencing some back pain, or they want to lose fat, lose weight, gain strength, build muscle. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Gotcha. And do you incorporate stuff like on balance and grip strength, all that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that's why the farmer's carries are really good for building grip strength. And again, it's something you can incorporate into your everyday because you're carrying bags of groceries or carrying something around the yard, things like that. And then, well, not everybody can do pull-ups, but like lat pull downs can help with grip strength as well. But even just general weight training with dumbbells will help as well.
Yep. I can tell you, I think the farmer's walk with the kettlebells are great.
Mm-hmm.
The farmer's walk where you have one kettlebell where you're nice and close and the other one's hanging down by the side.
Yeah.
That's great.
And now lighter one on top, heavy one on the bottom. Yeah.
Yep. I've been doing the farmer's walk now with the bell upside. So you have the kettlebell sitting here holding the handle. Get it cranked up here, hold it tight like that. One on the other side, and it's like it doesn't take a lot of weight to make you work hard. That's for sure. Yeah,
I usually like those carries a lot too, so I'll add them at the end usually of a workout.
Yep, it's definitely a great finisher.
Definitely, yeah.
So you mentioned time, and that's one of the things that we hear constantly. That's why in a lot of our workout programs that I put together, it's like 20 minutes long. It's like, Doc, I don't have the time to work out. They have the time to binge watch something, right? But they don't have the time to work out, right? So, and so 20 minutes, we can get a decent, relatively decent workout in 20 minutes, right? Something really good.
Mhm.
So what do you do with the complaint of, man, I don't have the time? Like, what do you
Yeah.
tell them? You're working with these high end business folks. They don't have a lot of time, or the perception of not having a lot of time. So, are you seeing them in the morning before they start the day? Do they do better afterwards? I know everybody's time is different, but what have you seen as a whole? How are you getting them motivated to see you 2 and 3 times a week, to do stuff when they're not seeing you? And what times do you feel is best?
I would say some of them do better in the mornings, some in the afternoons, some on the weekends. But I always encourage them to think about what time do you have available and what are you doing. So actually doing like a time diary is a great thing for them to try, where they actually write down how they're spending their time over a certain amount of day and what things are doing, because that kind of brings a little bit of awareness to what they're doing. Um, what are they doing when they wake up in the morning? How much time do they have before they have to go to work? What about when they come home from work? How much time do they have there? Do they get a lunch? How much time do they have during their lunch break? There's all moments during the day where they do have little parts of time where they can get some movement in. And I always tell them even a 15-minute workout can be really effective if it's designed right. And there's shorter rest periods. Again, you can get a lot done in a short amount of time. What body weight movements can you do right from home, so you don't even have to leave your house to go to the gym? Those are all things I try to encourage them and keep in mind. And then in terms of the outcome, though, again, I always stress this with my clients. It's up to you to put the work in. And we see this in life, of course. If there's a goal that you want to achieve, I can coach you and help you and guide you and support you. But if you're not going to put the work in, then you can't really get the result that you want.
Right.
So I always try to encourage them the best I can that, this is for you, this is your goal. I can help you, but you have to put in the work in order to do it. So I just try to encourage them to think about what time do they have available? Where are they spending it? What are they doing during those hours where they could maybe fit in a brief workout? And that's something that I try to always have them keep in mind.
When we talk about time, I run up against well, I don't know if this is really working. I don't see any change yet, and I'm like, it's been 2 weeks. It's been
Yeah.
4 workouts, right? So I always say nobody becomes a black belt overnight, right? I mean, it takes time, especially if we're working with somebody. Because for me, in the musculoskeletal world, technique is everything, right? So I don't want to risk a higher weight or another repetition for the risk of technique.
Definitely. Yeah. You don't want to rush them through something. You want to make sure they're doing it correctly. That's always key. And I tell them that it's better to have proper form than try to rush through it just because you want to finish it.
Right.
So
I'd rather have 1 or 2 less reps.
Exactly.
And there's a difference between pushing things out. We want to work to where we're getting that burn, that feeling, we're really making that muscle work. I get that. I'm all for that. But we also wanted to have a healthy rep, right? That's really important.
Definitely. And I always encourage, another good strategy is to time yourself, like how long does it take me to do something? And this has actually been helping me for just individual tasks. Like I'll set a timer for say 15 minutes. And if there's something I want to do, and even if I don't really want to do it, I'm like, well, I'm going to keep doing it till the timer's up, and that kind of encourages me to keep going. So if you were to time your workouts, that's a good strategy too. Say I'm going to do this workout and I'm going to set a timer and go for however many minutes it is, and I'm not going to stop till it's done. That's another good strategy to use too. So,
right. I mean, I try to do. There's some exercise routines where it's like, it's 30 seconds per the set, not 10 repetitions per set. Right. So sometimes I use the timing so I can do this. Like, all right, there's only 5 seconds left. I can get out another rep. I got to move it to number 10, because if it's the technique is failing, if I'm doing, let's say, a one-arm row, I'm like, wow, I know I'm doing a one-arm row, but I'm feeling my lower back. I'm going to stop. Yeah. So, I often talk about when that engine light is on, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm all for pushing through, but if I'm working like my one-arm row or shoulder and I feel something somewhere else, it's never going to be worth it. Right. Because I got to be able to recuperate and come back the next day.
Yeah. And that's what's good about my client. They'll tell me like, oh, I feel that here, or this is hurting me here. And I say, okay, well, stop. We're going to do this, or do it a different, do it this way, so we address it right away, which is always good. I always have them, tell me, I'd rather you tell me if you're in pain. Soreness again is something different, but if you're in pain, let me know right away, because that's important.
Yeah, I agree. And then the recovery time. So, some days I go back to back, but they're just different workouts,
Mhm.
right? So what do you like to see in the majority of your clients for that recovery time? Do you like a day between, 2 days between? What do you do if
Um,
they come back and they're still sore? All that.
yeah, well, I adjust the program if they're too sore. Say I want to focus on legs, we'll do something different. If their legs are sore, things like that. I always encourage them to have not work, the same muscle group on back-to-back days. So have say you do upper body one day, have a rest day the following day, then do lower body on Wednesday, and then do a full body on Friday, something like that. So it's spaced out a little bit. That's a good rule of thumb to follow. Um, Try not to group things too close together where you're working too hard too many times, because again you're going to get injured, you're going to get sore. And with recovery, I always think of this as like non-negotiable. Like you have to have a cool down at the end, you have to have a warm up at the beginning, 5 to 10 minutes. We're going to do some movements, and we'll do some dynamic stretches in the beginning for the warm up, and then the cool down is going to be the static stretches where you're holding a position for 30 seconds. And there's some static stretches thrown in there as well. But it's so important to have them get that structure down where they have the warm up 5 to 10 minutes, and then the workout, and then the cool down. It does add time at the for the whole workout, but
Right.
it definitely, especially as you get older, it's going to help you avoid injury and prevent that soreness too. And it also, I love the warm up because that kind of prepares your body for what you're about to do.
Yep.
So mentally, it gets you in the game, I feel like, and it's something that I do, with every workout, no matter what. So.
Yep. My warm up is 30 minutes long. So my warm up is probably some people's workouts, right? So, but listen, it's really, really important, because my warming up is not just a warm up of the ligaments, joints, and tendons. The warm up does not even involve any stretching whatsoever. It's all dynamic mobility kind of stuff. Because again, I'm getting the joints, ligaments, tendons getting ready to handle the dynamic load that we're going to put on those areas. So stretching doesn't help me. I'll stretch afterwards when my muscles are warm.
Yeah.
So my warm up is that, yes, we're warming up joint, ligament, tendon, and tissue, but it's also an assessment of like, hey, what am I able to get away with today, right? So if I wake up and that low back's a little cranky, and I go through this series of the warm ups, and at the end of the warm up is like, damn, that's still a little bit cranky. Probably not going to be doing a kettlebell swing that day, right? So I really look at that as a warm up and an assessment.
Yeah, that movement definitely in the warm up, it kind of clues you into, is there something that's bothering me today? What is it? Is there some kind of injury that could be brewing? It kind of clues you into what's going on with your body, and it's that awareness that's really important. That you have that.
Right, for sure. So before we move on to nutrition, I want to touch on one more factor, if we can, regarding strength training, and that's like the myths that we hear, right? So the big one here in my office, when I speak to my female demographic, it's kind of like, hey, I need you to, start working out with weights. You're like, oh, I don't want to get big. I'm like, you're not going to get big. Don't worry about it, right? And it's not going to happen. So what are some of the myths that you deal with?
Yeah, a lot of women, not all, but some will say, I don't want to lift weights, especially like anything heavy, because I'm going to be bulking up. And I always try to explain to them, unless you're lifting really, really heavy weights, you're not going to be bulking up, and we're not doing that. So you don't have anything to worry about, Right. But some of them are a little resistant to that. But, I always encourage them, especially, women that are, as you get older, you run the risk of osteoporosis and, things like that. So it's really important. We all lose muscle mass as we age, men and women. So it's important to keep that up, the strength training in place. Another myth is I want to lose fat in this area of my body, whatever it is, and they'll say it's, their tricep or their arm or, their leg in one area. And I always say you can't, spot reduction. You can't do spot reduction. You can't target one area of your body. You can certainly strengthen it, but you can't lose fat in one certain area. So those are probably two of the biggest myths, I'd say. But a lot of people, again, just don't know where to. A lot of people that I get just don't know where to start. So that's where the coach comes in. We help them, kind of put them at ease, get them comfortable being in the weight room, and get them started. That's what we do.
Yeah, it's great. So let's talk about nutrition, right? So in my world, in the functional medicine world, nutrition drives a lot of the presentations, right? So, and often I'm asked like, hey, well, what diet should I be on? I'm like, I hate that word diet. So I always think about it in the sense of like protocols. And it's the same answer like when they say, what vitamins and supplements should I be on, right? The answer is, I don't know. What the hell's wrong with you, right? So we got to first figure out like what the health goals are, what your blood work looks like. Maybe we need to do a functional lab blood work kind of deal, or maybe a stool test, micronutrient test. And, then we can figure out what we're going to do from a nutrition perspective. Because in my world, there's such nuance to nutrition. It's not a one size fits all. So we got the calories in, calories out people. We got the carbohydrate insulin model. Then we got our different protocols. There's ketogenic dieting. There's the Mediterranean. There's the DASH, the low glycemic rate, and the list just goes on and on. So with your clientele, what is it that you see, and how do you approach them from a nutrition perspective?
Yeah, definitely. We talk about nutrition in that initial assessment as well. So I find out what their goals are, what their nutrition needs. I always ask them, how is your diet? Meaning like, how is your nutrition now? So how is it right now? And I think some people will be honest, some maybe not, but they'll tell me what they're doing. And I always start off by saying them, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I can only encourage and support you in your nutrition goals. So I'm not going to say, eat this, not that. One thing that I come across a lot is people thinking that there's good foods, there's bad foods. Of course, there's foods that are better than others, but I try to avoid that thinking of, you can't ever have this or you can't ever have that. I always encourage them, you want to focus on what you can add in. Can you add in more fruits and vegetables? Can you add in more protein to your diet from whole foods? And I always stress that. So a lot of people feel like, they want that quick fix or that supplement that's going to help them. But I always say, well, what are you doing for your diet in terms of nutrition from whole foods? So what whole foods can you add to your diet? I asked about, are they cooking a lot of their meals? Are they going out to eat a lot? And even with that, I do that to find out, what their current situation is. There are times where if they're eating out a lot, it may not be ideal, but there are ways to get a healthier option than, thinking that it's just going to be totally trashed. Another thing I come across is the whole clean eating versus bad eating. So that's kind of something else that I try to stress with my clients. Try not to think about good or bad food. Think about what's going to fuel you up and make you feel good and make you have more energy and make you feel, more, that you're energized and ready to go and not crashing. So another thing I hear is the carbs are evil thing. So I always tell them, well, broccoli is also a carb. That's not really evil, your body needs carbs, it's a good source of energy for you. But again, it's what those carbs are. So there's some that are better than others. All food is a source of fuel, and try to encourage that. But again, you want to focus on what's going to be best for you. And of course, what are your, tastes? What are your needs? What do you like? What do you not like? That's also a big factor as well. What can you afford? It all comes down to that. So another thing I was thinking about recently was the whole processed food versus whole foods. Even like orange juice. I happen to like orange juice, but I realize it's probably better just have an orange, And I try to say, well, I'm going to buy oranges instead of orange juice more frequently. And just another strategy we try to tell them is if you want to eat something healthier, try to put it closer to the front of your fridge so you can grab it easier. It's easier to grab. Keep the less healthy stuff out of the fridge or out of the way, or a place that you can't really see it, so it's less grabbable. But eventually, if it's in your house, you're going to eat it. So
right.
But I just try to encourage them to just get away from the whole negative connotations that are around nutrition. There is no perfect diet for you out there. The perfect diet is the one that works best for you. So whatever that is. So there's lots of things with nutrition. It can get very deep and detailed, but it's definitely a key piece of fitness, because what you eat is going to help you fuel your workout, and it's going to determine whether you're, gaining muscle or losing muscle, gaining fat, losing fat. It's going to help in that regard. So I look at it as an important tool, an essential piece of the fitness puzzle.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about fuel and exercise. So where are you on the whey protein, creatine, and caffeine?
Well, I love caffeine. I have coffee every morning, so it's kind of like a no-brainer for me. I have my 2 cups in the morning, and then I'm good to go. For a workout, I prefer to have creatine and whey protein after the workout. But I'm starting to realize, like, is this even really necessary? Because I feel like your body doesn't absorb as much as it could if you just had a meal. Because about an hour later, I'm hungry anyway, so I just eat a meal. But I still do it because I feel like it does help with recovery. It definitely helps with muscle building. So that I feel like I keep it for that respect. And if clients want to do it, I say, hey, sure, fine. That's great. If that's what you want to do, that's great. Supplements are great, and I think that protein shakes are great. I still use them, but are they as effective as they claim to be? I don't know. I'm kind of on the fence about that, but I still use them.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of all three.
Yeah.
We have some people that can't digest the whey protein, so we actually get them a goat whey.
Okay.
And they do much easier with that. Also, we find that like people would drink their protein drinks. They'll drink their protein drink like on the way to work or right after the gym, and they guzzle it. And then when they do, that's when like their stomach like bloats.
Oh, yeah.
They just took it down too fast. The creatine's great. I mean, it's like the widest supplements that's been studied, and just not just for the muscle aspect, but for the brain aspect of it.
Yeah, I think it does definitely make a difference. I will say that. But I always try to encourage people supplements are supporting your diet. They're not the main diet. So if you're going to have a supplement, great, but you also want to eat a meal. You also want to have real food in addition to that.
Yeah, you're not going to out supplement and out exercise a poor diet, right? Or even sleep. Basically, the sleep is just as important because you don't get that sleep, and then we can't recover, right? So it's great on so many aspects of it. So what is your when people always say to me like, when we create these great menus for our patients, and they often will get like, do I get a snack? Right? That's one thing. It's like, okay, so we're in that snack routine. So what do you tell your clients, those who have these cravings, which are very, very real, right? And they snack. So what do you do to help them with the cravings? And what do you do to help them like, hey, you know what? I want a snack.
Yeah. Again, I try to go back to encouraging them not to think of good foods, bad foods. This is bad. I can't eat this. Because then it gets into also maybe they feel guilt because of that, or they're going to feel ashamed because they ate that. I try to encourage them to just minimize the less healthy options. Snacking is fine, again, but focus on whole foods. Focus on adding in the more fruits and vegetables to your diet. More fiber is going to help you feel more full. More protein is going to help you feel more full. And I stress over and over again the whole foods. So I say if you're hungry, eat. Don't starve yourself. But at the same time, make sure most of your nutrients you're getting are coming from whole foods. Try to do that, and the water intake is so important too. Like I ask people how much water they're taking or drinking, and a lot of them will say, "Well, I think I drink enough. I drink this much or that much," but it's usually not enough.
Right.
So I try to encourage them to drink water throughout the day. There's lots of tricks you can do. You can buy a big water bottle that has those levels on it, but you can also put glasses throughout the house or in places that it's easy to reach. Try to make it as easy on yourself as you can is what I try to encourage people. Keep it simple, make it harder to fail, by making it easy on yourself.
Mm-hmm. And what is your go-to snack?
Well, I love apples, great Greek yogurt a lot, but the plain. I don't like anything in it. It's just my taste. Yeah, I'd say that, and then almonds or peanuts, things like that. I do eat healthy most of the time. It's just I actually enjoy it.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm human too. I love things that are, occasional. Love the cheeseburger and French fries, which I know is not great, but eventually I just feel like I just want to have one, so I do. Pizza once in a while. I mean, everybody's, human, so nobody's perfect.
And I always tell people like we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for consistency, right? I mean,
exactly.
That's the biggest thing, And often people are like, I'm gonna go out to eat. What do I eat? And often, if I know ahead of time, I can look at the menu on the website and say, okay, of your protocol, this is like the best choices that you can make. And by doing that, it really eases a lot of the anxiety that's centered around it.
Yeah, there is a lot of anxiety around food, but I think if I try to encourage them to be more intentional about what they're eating, because they really do have a lot of control. You know, they don't realize it maybe, but they do have a lot of control over what they put in their mouth. I mean, there's also some psychology, you know, related to that, and other things related to that. And sometimes their schedules are all different. You know, working late, working different hours, traveling, things like that. It all puts challenges on trying to eat healthier, but there are ways around it, and you can always opt for the healthier option. But I always try to encourage them to minimize that the negativity that can sometimes surround, you know, choosing what to eat and all that.
Right. I always show that the power of health is truly at the end of the fork, right? I mean, that makes a big.
Yeah, and I always think about what's going to make you feel better. You know, what's going to make you feel better. You know, in the long run too, down the road.
You know, and when you know, it used to be like when I went out to a restaurant, it was like an appetizer and the dinner and the dessert, and now it's like, you know, unless that dessert is really going to be like, you know, like a homemade tiramisu or a real cannoli. I mean, I'm not, you know, not touching it. And most of the appetizers are like, you know, and now the cost of food, you're better off just eating at home, to be honest, and prepping and all that. And when you food prep, that's how you really stay healthy.
Oh, yeah.
When you can, I mean, what I usually eat for dinner, that's split next day, it's, you know, lunch.
I'm the same way. And people do struggle with that. I know that with meal prepping, like they know they should do it. They just don't want to do it. You know, so I try to say, well, what's going to make it easier for you? You know,
right.
Well, what are some ways that we can make it easy for you?
You can either pay for a service, right? Where you can get, there's a lot of great food services out there that people go to, which makes it easy, especially on those nights that are really busy. So you may not need like every single night, but maybe when those nights are busy, like you're ready to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, so you can invest in that, or you invest in your time and you food prep yourself and you invest in my good food, or you invest in medicine.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to decide where you want to put your money, because that's how it really comes down to, you know.
So I think all of that kind of ties into the aging and longevity thing that we were talking about earlier, because I always think about that in myself too. Like, where do I want to be 10 years from now? Or what do I want my life to be like, you know, 20 years from now? And I say this to my clients too. Like, you have to think about where you are years from now. Are you going to be able to pick up your grandkids and be living independently and be able to walk around on your own and do things that you want to do and travel and all that good stuff? So that's why fitness and nutrition are so important, because you really only have one body and you want to make sure you take care of it.
Right. I mean, and aside from that, you're not wealthy enough to be sick, right? There is a true cost of being sick, you know. And if you're making $250,000 a year, knock yourself out, get sick, right? But if you're not, don't get sick, because there's a true cost to it, right? So I always tell people, like you said, you know, where we want to be later on. You know, in your 20s, you're just training. Maybe you're not training. In your 30s, you're training for your 40s.
Yep.
Your 40s, you're training for your 50s.
Mm-hmm.
50s, you're training for 58.
Yep.
Right? Now we're training for every next 5 years, then next 2 years, right? Because that's the idea. So that's why, like, you know, we do like a lot of floor work. I think is just so important, right? That ability to get on the floor and off the floor. We do a lot of grip work, you know, all that's important, right? Because, you know, if you're going to hold on that banister on the way down, even if you trip, you can grab onto something, right? So all that stuff is really, really important.
Yeah, and strength training, especially as you get older, people are at risk for falls, so it'll help with that as well. Make your bones stronger, your muscles stronger. So just so important.
Yep, agreed. So before we start to wrap up, so can you share with us, if you can think like one good, like a really good client experience? They came in with X, you took them through Y, and they came out with Z. Can you think of?
Sure. Let me I do have one that was actually have two of them that I shared here, or that I can share. So this one said, having been Brian's client for 5 years, I can confidently attest to his exceptional skills as a fitness coach. What truly sets him apart is his remarkable ability to adapt his workout routines according to my evolving needs and goals. Despite my wrist weakness, Brian consistently crafts tailored workouts that challenge me without causing discomfort. So this client had a lot of, and still has a lot of wrist pain. When I work out with her, she has to wear these guards over her wrists. But she also has been pregnant and a couple times, and I've worked with her then. So I have experience with that. So she said, even during my pregnancy, he seamlessly modified our sessions to accommodate my prenatal needs. His flexibility and scheduling ensures that I can fully commit to achieving my fitness goals. And she endorsed me and said I wouldn't work with any other coach. So that's just a testimonial to share there. Another one had said that from the very beginning, he was very conscious of my limitations and goals and did everything that could accommodate them in a dynamic way. So he's used different styles of workouts and even provided guidance to build on our sessions at home and better my health in a way that fits my daily schedule. Very flexible to work with. A lot of times there's emergencies that arise with this client too. So I help him work around that, and he still gets his workout in. So that's just 2 examples there. I don't have a real specific one handy about taking somebody from here to here to there, but so many clients that I've worked with over the years have basically said that even just like small amounts of movement have helped them feel better, like almost immediately. And that's what I always try to capitalize on. Like, you don't have to do, full on workouts, really intense and lifting really heavy weights to feel good, and do like anything that's, hardcore or anything like that. Incorporating more movement throughout your day is just going to help you feel better, whatever that is for you. And I always tell people, even like the low hanging fruit of just going for a 10-minute walk is going to make you feel better on most days, especially if you're feeling stressed out. So walking, of course, is something that a lot of people can do. So it's something that's accessible and easy. So that's something that I try and encourage people to do, is get as much walking in as they can.
Excellent. And like, if somebody wants to work with you, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, my website is brianbody.com. And I can share my phone number too, is 484-541-2195. And I believe you have my email address as well, so I can share that as well. That's last name Pedersen Brian 3@gmail.com.
Gotcha. Super. And what can you say to a person who's like, well, you know what, you're kind of far away from me. Like, so how do I find somebody like you? Where do I go to look for?
Well, I can also.
How do I know like I'm getting a good personal trainer?
I definitely can do virtual training as well.
Okay.
And I always encourage people, sign up now rather than later, because you don't want to wait, especially if you have back pain. You don't want it to worsen over time. That's something to always keep in mind. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. And before we sign off, can you share any last words of wisdom?
Well, I did come across a recent quote that I really liked a lot. It was, I heard it was, if not now, when? So you want to think about that just for anything that you want to do or anything you want to accomplish. If you're not going to do it now, then when do you want to do it? So think about, I always try to encourage people, like, what can you do today to move you closer to your goal? Even just a small, 5-minute thing that you can do right now that's going to help you move you towards your goal. So what kind of movement can you get in today? Even if you only have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, what can you do today? So I just try to encourage people to focus on what they can do right now rather than wait, especially if you have pain, because you don't want to stay in pain and have it worsen and then have a lot of healthcare costs down the road, especially as you get older.
Sure. I always say the best time to start is now.
Yes, definitely.
Now's a good time. All right. Very cool. Thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Everybody,
yes, thank you very much.
There will be replays of this as well. So any questions, reach out to either one of us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Take care now.
See ya.
Thank you.